Well, good afternoon. Very difficult day, having been on all sides of the table for these leadership decisions. I can tell you it doesn't matter what seat you're in. These decisions are involving real human beings. They aren't taken lightly, and I don't ever lose the human aspect of these situations, and I have empathy for all involved. I want to start by thanking Coach Lester and his family for their years of service to Western and to our community. We've had the opportunity to work together for 11 months now. He's been a great partner, and I very much appreciate the efforts that he and his family made to welcome my family to Kalamazoo, and I have great admiration for his body of work here. He's an excellent coach and an even better person. He's an alumnus that we will always welcome back, and always welcome back with open arms. I also want to recognize the staff and the team who are also impacted by decisions of this nature. I'm proud of their efforts to end the season on a high note, and our conversations this morning were about respect for the program and how to move forward. And that's because they're great professionals and great young men who represent us very well. While there are many factors that go into a difficult decision like this one, my ultimate conclusion was that our positioning in many important quantifiable categories did not match our goals nor the resources that we've invested in this program. Therefore, as we enter a new era of the Football Bowl subdivision and the upcoming expansion of the college football playoff, where one group of 5 institution will have an opportunity for an automatic qualifier, I felt that now was as an important time as any to consider new leadership within our program. So now we move forward. And here's what I know about Western Michigan. It's a place on the rise, and nowhere is that more evident than in our athletic programs. We've got a stable of experienced coaches who care deeply about the student-athlete experience and competing at the top of our league. We've just finished a historic fall athletic season where our women's soccer program, under new leadership, reintroduced themselves to the MAC postseason and competed at high levels in the MAC. Where our cross-country program, under new leadership, went from bottom 2 of the MAC to top 5 and placed 2 runners first-team All-MAC for the first time in our history. Where our men's soccer program just proved that regardless of conference or affiliation, they can sweep the Power 5 and be one of the best teams in the country. We've got a men's basketball program under new leadership with renewed energy, lofty aspirations, and growing community support. We've got a softball program under new leadership that just went from missing the MAC postseason to going 7-1 in fall ball, beating Michigan State, and getting commitments from some of the best recruits in the country. We've got a men's tennis program that'll seek to sweep the MAC championships again. We've got a hockey program that is among the nation's best and with the best fans in the world that are hungry to find reasons to come cheer us on at other venues. We will soon release a strategic plan which will identify new revenue streams with a goal of growing our resources to the top of our conferences, sets ambitious holistic development goals to prepare our athletes in life and in this new era of athletics, commissions a facilities master plan to guide our growth, and outlines competitive priorities that ultimately seek to put us at the top of our conferences every single year. And better yet, I've got an entire staff and group of coaches who believe that we can do it. The time is now. I've talked about comprehensive excellence, and it is defined as follows. Every student athlete that commits to Western Michigan will graduate holistically prepared to pursue their passions in life, will make a high-quality connection with our community that extends beyond eligibility, and will win a conference championship. That's Western Michigan. So we immediately begin a search to find a leader that shares our vision. High energy, community-oriented, passionate about the student-athlete experience, demonstrated recruiting ability, and success at a variety of all levels will factor into our decision. I've hired Glenn Sugiyama of DHR Global to assist with the search, and we've already started. Our timeline is as soon as possible, while being very deliberate and very careful to leave this great program in the best of hands. Appreciate your time this afternoon and happy to take any questions.
Patrick Nothaft with the Kalamazoo Gazette and MLive. You mentioned the quantifiable categories in which the team or maybe coaching staff fell short. Could you explain what those were?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in particular, our goal is to win the MAC West, and we fell short of that with several weeks to go in the season. That is one, and that's an important one.
When did you make the decision to part ways with Tim?
Friday after the game.
How much impact did the final 2 games have?
When you make a decision like that, every second has an impact. So it's hard for me to dial in on one game, one moment, one play. The fact of the matter is we fell well short of our goals, and I didn't see a clear path forward to help us put us in a position to achieve them.
Could you talk a little bit more about some of the main factors that really were behind this decision?
Well, like I said, achieving our goals, competing at the highest level in the MAC, having a clear path forward for us to do so, were all things that I was looking for in any one of our coaches, whether it was football or any other program. Ultimately, in the end, I didn't see an ability for us to reach our goals with the current staff.
You mentioned the coaching search has already started. When do you hope to have a new coach announced by?
It's tough to put a timeline on that. We're obviously just getting started today, and we made the announcement this morning. There's certainly some key dates that I'm honed in on. One is the signing date, December 21st. The other is typically school goes in session around the country in about the second week of January, and that's the same for us. Having a decision ahead of time allows you to think about transfer portal, graduate transfers, mid-year enrollment. So those are 2 sort of key dates that I'm thinking about.
There were several players that left the team after fall camp started, at least one more mid-season, and then there was a suspension of a star running back midway through. What did you think of the culture that existed in this year?
Well, I thought we had a group of young men that stuck together. I actually commend that group. What I saw in the locker room amongst the offense and the defense and their love for one another actually stood out. I did feel like we accepted mediocrity from time to time, and I think that was cultural amongst the program, and so that also stood out.
The $500,000 buyout, was that something that was given any consideration? If so, how much? And who are the parties that are footing that bill?
The buyout will be privately funded. It was not a consideration.
Have you been part of an athletic department search for a new head football coach before? And if so, how will those experiences kind of help you this time around?
Yeah, I've been a part of several head coaching searches, even in my short 10 months here. Football in particular, you asked about. I was very fortunate to be right alongside my boss at the time, Scott Barnes, on a very small committee of 2 to hire Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. And I learned a lot through that process. I learned a lot about fit, and regardless of somebody's background, fit really matters. And so having a great understanding of what is the right fit for a place like Western Michigan or a place like Oregon State at the time is really, really important. So I'm actually very glad that I've had 11 months to get that runway. I also learned a lot about preparation. I always feel like a coach who isn't prepared for an interview isn't going to be prepared for a practice. And so the candidates that I saw throughout that process that stood out for me, and many have gone on to have great careers elsewhere, were prepared. So I'm looking forward to it, to be honest with you. Loved the process for Jonathan Smith. Obviously, a huge win for that program to get up to 9 games. They were 1-11 the season before we hired him. Big win for them over the Ducks this weekend. Excited to find somebody like that.
Dan, Jack Doles from WID TV. When PJ was hired, he kind of came out of left field. When Tim was hired, he was a Western Michigan guy. Mm-hmm. Are you looking for somebody with any kind of Western Michigan ties? Or is this just, are you looking for that, that next?
Yep, I get it,
guy?
yeah. I mean, I think familiarity with the region and the conference is important. PJ had that when they hired him. I don't necessarily think absolute familiarity with Western Michigan is. Those are things, we will spend a lot of time preparing information about who we are and who we want to be. And we will provide our candidates that. So they'll get a good sense of what they're walking into. I certainly will prioritize candidates with experience in the Midwest and at least some knowledge of the MAC. I think that's always helpful. It's a very unique league.
Do you want somebody with head coaching experience, or are you looking for coordinators?
Not required, not required. I think I think it's important to know that somebody has had the ability or been given the responsibility of calling plays. And typically you see that in the coordinator or the head coach. That does not mean that position coaches don't do it and can't do it, and those are all things that we'll assess throughout the interview process.
Was there a tipping point with Tim where you just didn't believe it could happen?
Not one.
Nate Brown, News Channel 3. Dan, if you could talk about maybe some of the interactions you might have had, with Tim when you first got here, sort of discussing that standard that you were hoping that the football program would meet, and if you guys maybe discussed those throughout this season at all.
Yeah, I met with Tim weekly. We spoke on the phone, I would say usually more than once a week. We were very close, and I thought it was very important for me to spend a lot of time with that program and close to that program. We all sat in strategic planning committee meetings that Tim and a lot of his staff were involved in over the past year. Those processes are important because they help define priorities. It's not always just the AD and the head coach sitting in a room alone where priorities are defined. And so I think the standard was clear. Comprehensive excellence was clear. Competing to win the MAC through the last week of the season was clear. And I think something that we all believed in including Tim. So I believe that the standard was communicated very clearly throughout the department.
Care to sort of share any details of, you talking with Tim about this decision, what that was sort of like?
Those are private conversations. I loved him. And we're all rooting for Tim Lester, not only as our former head football coach, but as an alumnus. And he knows that. He knows how I feel about him, and we're all cheering for him.
In looking at this decision that you guys will have coming up, you talk about a timeline of wanting it ASAP, but obviously trying to make that. What sort of? I mean, how do you really try to balance that of trying to make that right hire, but trying to make it quick enough so you have someone in place for hopefully the early signing period?
Yeah, not a lot of balance in this profession, as it turns out. It's what I'm going to spend all of my time on. I shared this with. I met with our leadership council today. And I told them this, and I mean it, this is the most important thing I do, by far. Nothing is more important to an athletic director than hiring a head coach and hiring the right head coach. That's the individual who has the largest impact on our most important group that we serve, our student athletes. So I'm going to be spending all of my time on it. There will be very little other balance, unfortunately, for the other people in my life. And again, I mentioned those priority dates. Certainly this is a time where there's a lot of action, there's a lot of conversation. We will keep moving at a very, very fast speed, and I'm encouraged that we can center in on those dates.
Obviously, with the removal of the head coach, the remaining staff, are they on for now, or are they leaving as well?
They are. We had a great meeting this morning, and we all agreed the most important thing right now was that team room, right? I mean, we met at 7:30, and then we were all getting ready to walk down to meet with the team, and we were certainly on the same page that their well-being and that them finishing strong in particular was going to be our most important task in that building. So they're here. When I hire a head coach, I do give them the autonomy to make staffing decisions, so we can have those conversations at that time. But I certainly respect those men and women on that staff who are fully committed to making this a great experience over the next few weeks.
Eddie Rosenthal at the Western Herald. So what kind of elements need to be brought to this team, or what culture are you looking for with this hire?
Very good question. I think we all need to strive for a culture where we only settle for the best, where mediocrity is not acceptable, where we don't pass by details that can be fixed without immediately fixing them, where we don't excuse certain behaviors that are not allowing us to reach that championship level. So first and foremost, I'm looking for that across the entire department, not just in football. Football is our most visible program, but let's start there. The energy level is important to me. You know, I think if you watched our sideline during some games, we were a little down. Presenting energy, presenting a belief throughout practice, throughout every game, that resonates with the team and creates a culture of belief is going to be incredibly, incredibly important to me. We're going to have to recruit. I mean, let's be honest. In the MAC, if you're a little bit more creative and you work a little bit harder than everybody else, you can have success. So I'm going to be looking for somebody who has demonstrated recruiting experience and who's bringing the best of the best into the program. And then we've got to surround ourselves with the best, right? I mean, there's no secret that there have been changes made here in my first 11 months. My goal there is to bring people into these buildings who are going to do exactly what I just said. They're going to look at every detail. They're going to fix them when they need fixed. They're going to hold their teammates accountable, and we're all going to make each other better that way.
And you touched a little bit on the college football playoff. So with the rankings, it's sort of weird this year. They don't really favor head-to-head. How do you see that changing, the rankings just changing in the future with the new playoff format?
Well, the good thing is that in 2 years, you know, the highest ranked member of a group of 5, you've got 6 automatic qualifiers into the tournament, and you've got 5 Power 5 conferences. So right away, right off the bat, if you're the MAC, you've got essentially an automatic qualifier spot. So it'll be interesting to see. We're not there yet, right? Scheduling is going to be important, but you know what's going to be the most important? Winning the MAC. You're not even going to be in the conversation unless you do that. And in order to win the MAC, you got to win the MAC West. In order to win the MAC West, you got to be playing meaningful games in November. So we'll start there. But I look at it as an opportunity, and I'm serious when I say that. This is, you know, there's no coincidence here. We've got 2 years to get ready for this, and we're going to.
Patrick Nothaff, Kalamazoo Gazette, and I'm live again. You mentioned preparedness, energy, familiarity with the MAC. What are some other characteristics that this new head football coach must have?
Energy, relentless energy. I want somebody who walks in a room and picks everybody up who's around them, who inspires you to be greater, who inspires the team to be greater, and who ultimately will get our community excited. So energy first. I've talked a lot about our community, high-quality connections with the community. I want somebody who values Kalamazoo as a top 50 media market, because it is, and wants to make the community a part of the program. I think that's what can be incredibly special here at Western Michigan, and frankly, in my 1 year here, something that's been a goal for us as a department and something where I think we all can improve. So, of course, all those, the sort of the football tangibles are important. We got to bring the community in, and we're going to need to do it with energy.
There's some pretty good recruits in this class that I guess are kind of hanging in the balance right now. Who's going to be recruiting them up until the December signing day?
Yep.
And was that class at all like something you were considering when making this decision?
Well, you consider the position they're in, right? I mean, they've made a commitment to us, and you know, we are going to continue to make a commitment to them. So we are in touch with those recruits. I've told our remaining staff to stay in touch with those recruits. I will be in touch with them as well. We are full speed ahead. It's business as usual. Thanks all.